They didn't kill them. That would have been mercy. What the Spartans did to the wives of defeated warriors was far more calculated, far more cruel. In the summer of 421 BC, after the siege of Mantinea, Spartan officers walked through smoking ruins with wax tablets marking names, not for burial, not for ransom, for something history would spend centuries trying to forget. This is the story of women who survived what no one should survive, and the empire that made erasure an art form. The screaming stopped around midday. Callista stood in her courtyard, one hand on the cracked wall, the other crushing her 4-year-old son against her chest. Nikos had stopped crying an hour ago. Now he just shook. "Mama." Her daughter Lyra's voice cracked. "Where's Papa?" Callista's throat closed. She'd watched Theon fall from the walls that morning, watched the crimson cloak swallow him. But she couldn't say it. Not yet. "Stay close to me." Footsteps, heavy, organized. The Spartans were coming through the ruins, street by street, house by house. Alexios, her eldest, 12 years old, grabbed a broken spear shaft from the rubble. His hands shook, but he planted his feet like his father had taught him. "Put it down," Callista whispered. "I can fight. You'll die. Papa fought, and Papa's dead." The words came out harder than she meant. Alexios flinched, but he dropped the spear. The first Spartan appeared in her doorway. Young, maybe 19. His armor was scratched but clean, his cloak still bright red despite 3 days of siege. He carried a wax tablet like a merchant checking inventory. He looked at Callista, not at her face, at her body, her hips, her hands, the way you'd examine a horse. Name: Callista. Wife of Theon, daughter of Pat, husband dead. The casualness of it stole her breath, as if he were asking about the weather. Yes. He made a mark, scrape of stylus on wax. Children. 3. Ages: 12, 9, 4. When he looked at Alexios, lingered there, then at Lyra, then Nikos. "The boy comes with you." He pointed at Alexios. "The others go with the children's group." "No." The word exploded before Callista could stop it. "No, they stay with me." His expression didn't change. "The older boy comes with you. The others are being taken care of." "You're lying." "I'm following orders." 2 soldiers appeared behind him, silent, efficient. "Please." Callista hated the sound of her own voice. "They're all I have." "Now you have what Sparta gives you." The soldiers moved forward. Lyra screamed. Her fingers clawed at Callista's dress, ripping the fabric. Nikos didn't even fight. He just went limp in the soldier's arms, his eyes locked on his mother's face. Alexios swung, actually landed a punch on one soldier's jaw before they grabbed him. He fought like a wildcat, snarling, kicking. "Let them go!" His voice broke. Still a child's voice, trying so hard to be a man's. "Mama!" Lyra's scream cut through the square. "Mama, don't let them!" Then silence. They were gone, swallowed by the crowd of children being herded toward the eastern gate. Callista stood frozen, her arms still positioned as if holding Nikos. A sound came from somewhere low animal, and she realized it was her. Alexios grabbed her hand. His palm was slick with sweat and blood. "Mama, we have to be strong." 12 years old, telling her to be strong. The officer was already walking away. She caught his arm without thinking. "When do I see them again?" He looked down at her hand on his arm. She let go. "You don't. You said..." "I said they'd be taken care of, not that you'd see them." He tilted his head. "Better you forget them now." He walked away. Alexios pulled her close, his thin body trembling against hers, and Callista understood. This was the conquest, not the battle. This. By evening, 200 women filled the main square. Callista stood near the back. Alexios pressed against her side. Around them, the other women were all the same, young enough to be useful, healthy enough to survive. Widows. Every single one. "Why just us?" someone whispered. Why not the old women? Why not? Look around, another voice hissed. We're all breeding age. Silence. Heavy. Terrible. A Spartan officer climbed the temple steps, older, scarred face. When he spoke, his voice carried without shouting. You are prisoners of Sparta. Your lives belong to us now. Straight to the point. No preamble. Some of you will become Helot's workers. You'll farm our land, serve our households, bear children who will do the same. He paused. This is mercy. You'll live. A mercy. Callista's jaw clenched. Others will be selected for higher purpose. His eyes scanned the crowd. Several women flinched. Sparta values strength. We don't waste strong bloodlines even from enemies. The finest among you will join Spartan households. You will marry Spartan citizens. You will bear Spartan children. The words landed like stones in deep water. Ripples of understanding spread through the crowd. This is how Sparta transforms enemies into sons. This is how our strength endures. You should be grateful. A woman near the front stepped forward. Elena, Potter's wife. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was clear. You call this mercy? The officer smiled. I call it a choice. What choice? Slavery or forced marriage? Slavery or citizenship for your children? Which sounds better? And if we refuse? The smile widened. Then you refuse mercy and accept justice. We have quarries, ships. The mountains have wolves. He gestured broadly. Choose. Elena's legs gave out. She sank to her knees. No one else spoke. What was there to say? Alexios squeezed Callista's hand. Mama. She looked down at him, saw his father's eyes, his father's stubborn jaw, 12 years old and already having to make impossible calculations. We survive, she whispered, whatever it takes. But even as she said it, she wondered, is survival always worth the cost? That night, they kept the women in a makeshift pen near the old market. No walls, just torches marking the boundary and guards watching from every angle. Callista sat with her back against a stone fountain, Alexios asleep against her shoulder. Around them, women whispered in clusters. They say the march is 3 days. My sister-in-law was taken by Spartans 7 years ago. I never heard from her again. At least we're alive. Are we? That last voice was close. Callista turned. A young woman, maybe 20, sat nearby. Thyra, Baker's daughter. Her wedding had been 3 months ago. Your husband, Callista asked, fell in the first wave. Thyra's voice was flat, empty. We'd been married 11 weeks. I'm sorry. Don't be. He died quickly. Clean spear through the heart. Thyra looked at her hands. What they're offering us. That's slow death. The kind where you wake up every morning and have to remember who you used to be. An older woman leaned in. Keep your voice down. They're listening. Let them listen. But Thyra lowered her voice anyway. You know what I heard Spartan women watch the ceremonies? The forced weddings. They laugh. Callista felt something cold settle in her chest. Why? Because we're weak. Because we loved our husbands. Because we cried when they died. That's shameful to them. Another woman joined them. Older. Harder. I was in Athens once. Saw a Spartan woman at the market. Her son had just died in battle. She was buying wine for the celebration. Celebration. She said he'd brought honor to Sparta. That's all that mattered. The woman's voice was bitter. These aren't normal people. They've cut out whatever makes humans human. Then what are we walking into? Someone whispered. No one answered, because they all knew. The march began before dawn. 4 columns, 50 women each, Spartan soldiers on horseback flanking them. The pace was brutal military speed, not human endurance. Within the first hour, 3 women had collapsed. The soldiers didn't help them up, just marked their tablets and kept moving. What happens to them? Alexios asked. I don't know. Callista pulled him closer. Don't look back. But she looked back. Couldn't help it. The three women lay in the dust like discarded sacks. One was still moving. Keep walking, a guard called. Or join them. Thyra appeared beside Callista. Notice something. What? They're not treating us like prisoners. They're treating us like cargo. Valuable cargo. Thyra's eyes were sharp despite her exhaustion. When that girl tried to run during the water break, they caught her. Didn't hurt her. Just brought her back. So we're worth something. Alive and intact. Thyra's laugh was bitter. We're weapons. Wombs that'll make the next generation of Spartans from conquered blood. The realization hit Callista like a fist. They're erasing us. Not killing us, erasing us. Turning us into them. Now you understand. A scream split the air. Both women turned. A young girl, maybe 16, had broken from the column and was running toward the tree line. 3 soldiers spurred their horses after her. They caught her in seconds, dragged her back, but they didn't kill her, didn't even hit her, just tied her hands and put her back in line. Valuable cargo, Thyra repeated. That night, during the rest stop, Callista watched the Spartans work. They'd set up camp with military precision guard rotations, supply distribution, medical checks for the women. One officer was actually treating blisters on a prisoner's feet. Drink. A guard handed her a water skin. You need strength for tomorrow. She drank. The water was clean, cool. They were feeding them too, not well, but adequately, keeping them healthy. Elena appeared out of the darkness. They're counting us, every hour, making sure no one escapes or dies. We're inventory, Callista said. What? That's what we are. They've conquered Mantinea. Now they're processing the spoils. She looked at the wax tablets the officers carried. We're not people anymore. We're resources to be allocated. Alexios stirred against her. She stroked his hair, feeling the steady beat of his heart. A question formed in her mind. Can you resist when even survival is a form of surrender? On the second day, they crested a hill and saw Sparta. It wasn't what Callista expected. No great walls, no towering temples, just a sprawling military camp that had somehow become a city. That's Sparta, someone whispered. It looks ordinary. That's the point, Thyra said. They don't need walls. They have warriors. As they descended, Callista saw her first Spartan woman. She stood by the road watching the column pass. Mid-30s strong build, wearing a simple red tunic. Her face was hard as bronze. When she saw the captured women, she smiled. Actually smiled. Then she spat. Weak, she called out. You couldn't even defend your own city. Elena broke. Our husbands died defending it. The Spartan woman laughed. Then they died weak too. A true warrior brings victory or death. Not this. She gestured at the column. Not surrender. We didn't surrender. You're alive, aren't you? The woman's voice was ice. A Spartan woman would have killed herself before accepting capture, but you chose survival over honor. She walked away. Several other Spartan women had gathered to watch. They were laughing now, pointing, mocking. Alexios looked up at Callista. Why are they like that? I don't know. But she was starting to understand. Sparta hadn't just built a military state. They'd built a culture that viewed normal human emotion, love, grief, mercy, as defects to be corrected. What happens to a society that makes cruelty sacred? They reached the processing center at sunset. It was efficient, brutal in its efficiency. Women separated into groups based on age, health, perceived value. Officers with tablets making marks, assigning destinies with stylus scratches. Callista and Alexios were pulled to the right, the selection group, for state marriages. Elena went left, Helot labor. They locked eyes across the courtyard. Elena's face was white with terror. Callista! A guard blocked her view. Move! Callista! Then she was gone, swallowed by the crowd of women being marched toward the Helot quarters. Thyra grabbed Callista's arm. Stay close. Whatever happens, we stay. You, an officer pointed at Thyra, with the breeding group. What? No, I'm with her. Now. Two soldiers pulled Thyra away. She fought screaming, but they were too strong. Callista stood frozen. In 10 seconds, she'd lost the only two people who'd become anchors in this nightmare. Mama. Alexios's voice was small. I'm scared. I know. What's going to happen to us? She wanted to lie. Wanted to tell him it would be okay, that they'd get through this, that someday they'd see Lyra and Nikos again. But she was done with lies. I don't know, she pulled him close. But we survive it, together. A new officer approached, older, different uniform. He looked at Callista with the same assessing gaze she'd seen a dozen times now. You're Callista of Messenia. Yes. Wife of Theon, daughter of Nicomedes. How did he know her father's name? Yes. He made a mark on his tablet. You've been selected for household assignment. Your son will enter the Agoge in 2 years when he turns 14. The Agoge? Alexios's voice cracked. The warrior training. Every Spartan male enters at 7, but conquered sons start at 14. You'll be trained to serve Sparta. I'm not Spartan. You will be. The officer looked at Callista. You'll marry a Spartan citizen, a commander. He lost his wife last winter. You'll bear his children, raise them as Spartans, serve his household. And if I refuse, you'll work the quarries until you change your mind. Your son will be sold to the slave markets. He paused. Or you can accept Sparta's generosity. There it was again. Generosity. Mercy. As if erasing someone's entire identity was a gift. When Callista's voice sounded strange to her own ears. Distant. Detached. Tomorrow. The ceremony is at dawn. Ceremony. Public wedding. Spartan tradition. He almost looked apologetic. Almost. It helps with integration. He walked away. Left Callista standing there with Alexios clutching her hand. Around them, other women were receiving similar news. Some were crying. Some stood silent. One woman, Callista didn't know her name, simply turned and walked toward the guards. Kill me, she said calmly. I'd rather die than... The guard looked bored. We don't kill valuable assets. You'll work quarries until you cooperate. The woman lunged at him, trying to grab his sword. He sidestepped easily. 2 more guards appeared and dragged her away, screaming. Smart, someone whispered. She'll break in a week, they all do. Callista looked down at Alexios, saw her father's eyes, Theon's jaw, her own stubbornness. What do we do? He whispered. And she realized this was the real test, not the battle, not the march. This. Every day she'd have to choose survival over death, cooperation over resistance, Spartan identity over Mantinean memory. Every day she'd have to betray herself just a little more. We do what we must, she said finally. We bend. We pretend. We survive. And then we remember. We remember who we were. We remember Mantinea. We remember Papa. Her voice hardened. Because memory is the only weapon they can't take. Alexios nodded, 12 years old and already understanding what his mother was really saying. This is a war, but it's not fought with spears. It's fought with identity, with memory, with the small silent resistance of refusing to forget. A guard called out, "Women for tomorrow's ceremonies, follow me." Callista took one last look at the mountains. Somewhere beyond them was Mantinea, was Lyra, was Nikos, was the person she used to be. Then she squeezed Alexios's hand and walked into Sparta. The real battle was just beginning. The ceremony began at dawn, just as he'd promised. Callista stood in a line of 30 women outside the Temple of Artemis. They'd been given white chitons, traditional Greek wedding dress, but the fabric was rough, institutional, the kind of garment you'd give to someone you didn't see as fully human. Alexios stood with other boys near the back, guarded but visible, a reminder: cooperate or lose him. I can't do this. The woman next to Callista was shaking. I can't. You will. Callista kept her voice flat. Because the alternative is worse. How do you know? Because I watched them drag away the woman who refused yesterday. Did you hear her screaming last night from the quarries? The woman went silent. A drum beat. Single steady rhythm. The temple doors opened. 30 Spartan men walked out in formation. Warriors, commanders, men who'd lost wives to childbirth or disease and needed wombs to continue their bloodlines. They wore crimson cloaks and bronze armor polished until it caught the rising sun. They looked like gods. That was the point. The officer from yesterday appeared. When I call your name, you will step forward. You will recite the oath. You will accept your new husband. He paused. Any resistance will be noted. Noted. Such a polite word for what would actually happen. Callista of Messenia. Her legs moved before her mind caught up. She stepped forward. The man waiting for her was perhaps 40. Scarred face, gray in his beard. His eyes were cold, not cruel exactly, but empty of warmth. He assessed her the same way every Spartan had, checking her body, her hips, her health. Nikomachos, he said, commander of the 3rd Mora. My wife died giving birth to my son. You'll give me more sons, strong ones. Not a question, a statement of fact. The officer held out a wax tablet. Recite the oath. Callista looked at the words. They were in Doric Greek, deliberately different from her Attic dialect. A reminder that even her language was wrong here. I swear by Zeus and Hera to serve Sparta. Her voice came out steady, surprising. To bear children for Sparta's glory. To forget my former life and embrace my new purpose. Forget. They actually wrote it into the oath. And do you accept Nikomachos as husband and master, not partner, not even husband alone? I accept. Nikomachos grabbed her wrist. His grip was iron. He turned to the gathered crowd, other Spartan families watching with blank faces, and raised her arm like a victory trophy. Witness this union. This woman is now Spartan property. Applause. Polite. Mechanical. And then from the crowd, laughter. Callista saw them, 3 Spartan women, young, strong, watching with undisguised contempt. One of them called out, "How does it feel, Messenian, to marry the man whose spear killed your husband?" Callista's blood froze. She looked at Nikomachos. "Is that true?" He shrugged. "I killed many men at Messenia. Your husband may have been one of them." He pulled her closer, his breath hot against her ear. "Does it matter? You're mine now, either way." The Spartan women laughed harder, and Callista understood this wasn't just conquest. This was theater. Public humiliation designed to break whatever remained of her identity. She looked back at Alexios. His face was white with rage and horror. She mouthed one word: survive. Then Nikomachos led her away from the temple, away from her son, toward the house that would be her prison for the rest of her life. The sun was barely up. Her new life had already begun. When something can be both true and unbearable, which matters more? The house was large, too large, built for a family of soldiers and sons now occupied by one widowed commander and his household slaves. Nikomachos walked her through without ceremony. Kitchen, storage, training yard for when your sons are old enough. He gestured to a room at the back. My quarters. You'll sleep there. Where do the slaves sleep? You're asking the wrong questions. He turned to face her. You're not a slave. You're a wife. That's worse. How? Slaves have no expectations. You're expected to love this life, to raise children who see Sparta as their homeland, to forget you were ever anything else. He smiled without humor. Slaves just obey. Wives have to believe. He left her there, locked the door from outside. Callista sank to the floor. The room was bare sleeping mat, single lamp, small window too high to reach. She could hear sounds from outside, marching feet, shouted commands, the daily rhythm of a military state. She thought of Lyra, of Nikos. Were they even alive? The door opened. An older woman entered carrying bread and water. She was Greek, not Spartan, but her eyes were empty. You're Helot, Callista said. Was. 20 years ago. Now I just... Am. She set down the food. Eat. You'll need strength. For what? For surviving him. For bearing children. For becoming what they want you to become. The woman's voice was hollow. I was from Messenia. Had a husband. 3 daughters. That was another life. Do you remember them? Every day. She moved toward the door. But remembering doesn't change anything. It just makes it hurt more. She left. The lock clicked. Callista stared at the bread. Her stomach twisted with hunger and revulsion. If she ate, she was accepting this. If she didn't, she was choosing slow death. She ate, because Alexios was still alive. Because somewhere maybe Lyra and Nikos were too. Because the only way to resist was to survive long enough to find a way out. She finished the bread and realized they'd won. Not just the battle, but the war for her soul. She was already making compromises, already calculating how much of herself she could sacrifice to stay alive. How many small surrenders does it take before you can't remember who you were fighting for? 3 days later, she met the other wives. They gathered in Nicomachos' courtyard, 6 women, all captured from different cities, all married to commanders in his unit. A forced social event designed to show the community how well the integration program was working. Thyra was there. Their eyes met across the courtyard, and Callista felt something crack open in her chest. You survived, Thyra whispered when they finally stood close enough. So did you. Barely. Thyra's wrist was bruised. My husband doesn't like questions. Mine doesn't like anything. A Spartan woman approached mid-30s athletic build wearing the traditional red peplos. She moved with absolute confidence, as if the courtyard belonged to her. Which in a way it did. I'm Gorgo. Her voice was sharp. Nicomachos' sister, which makes me your sister by law. She looked Callista up and down. You're the Mantinean. I was. No, you are. Don't pretend otherwise. Gorgo smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Let me give you advice. Spartan women aren't like you. We don't weep for dead husbands. We don't cling to children. We serve the state. Is that supposed to make me respect you? The other women froze. You didn't challenge a Spartan woman. Not directly. Gorgo's smile widened. Good. You have fire. My brother needs that. His first wife was too weak, died pushing out a son. She leaned closer. But understand that fire belongs to Sparta now. You'll use it to raise warriors, not to mourn a dead city. And if I don't, then your son enters the Agoge tomorrow instead of in 2 years. They'll break him faster than you can imagine. Gorgo straightened. Your choice. She walked away. The message was clear. Cooperate or watch Alexios suffer. Thyra grabbed Callista's arm. Don't antagonize them. She threatened my son. Of course she did. That's how they control us. Thyra's eyes were hard. Haven't you figured it out yet? They don't need chains or whips. They just dangle our children in front of us and watch us comply. Another wife joined them, older, maybe 35. I'm Milena, from Argos. Been here 6 years. 6 years. Callista felt sick. How do you stop thinking about how, you just do. Milena's voice was flat. I have 2 sons now, Spartan sons. They're 8 and 6. They don't remember Argos. They call me mother, but they love Sparta more. That doesn't bother you. It destroyed me. 3 years ago, I tried to run. They caught me before I reached the border. She pulled up her sleeve. Burn scars covered her forearm. The Cryptia did this. Not to punish me, to remind me. My sons watched. Callista's stomach turned. The Cryptia. Secret police. Young Spartans' final year of training. They hunt helots at night, kill anyone who steps out of line. Sometimes they just kill for practice. Milena's eyes were dead. My sons want to join when they're old enough. They think it's an honor. The courtyard suddenly felt smaller, darker. We're raising the next generation of monsters, Thyra whispered. No. Milena's voice was sharp. We're raising Spartans. There's a difference. Is there? Before Milena could answer, drums sounded from the street. All conversation stopped. The women turned toward the noise. A procession was passing young Spartan warriors, maybe 16 or 17, dragging something behind them. No, not something. Someone. A Helot. Male, middle-aged, bloodied. Still alive, but barely. The warriors dumped him in the street. One of them, barely older than Alexios would be in a few years, drew a short sword. This one was caught stealing grain. His voice was proud. The punishment is death. He drove the blade down. Once, twice, 3 times. The Helot stopped moving. The warriors left the body there. A warning. Gorgo appeared beside Callista. See, this is Sparta. We don't tolerate theft. We don't tolerate weakness. We don't tolerate resistance. She looked directly at Callista. And we certainly don't tolerate women who think they can cling to dead cities. She walked away. Thyra was shaking. They wanted us to see that. All of us. That's why they killed him here now. It's a message, Milena said quietly. Step out of line and you're next. Callista looked at the body, at the blood pooling in the street, at the Spartan children walking past it without even flinching, as if dead Helots were just part of the scenery. And she realized this wasn't a society. This was a machine. Every part designed to create warriors and eliminate weakness. The captured wives, the Helot slaves, even the Spartan children, all of them were components in a system that ran on fear and violence. What happens when an entire culture mistakes cruelty for strength? That night, Nikomachos came to her. She'd known it was coming, had prepared herself as much as anyone could prepare for inevitable violation. But knowing and experiencing were different things. He didn't speak, didn't pretend affection or even basic humanity, just took what he believed he owned. When it was over, he rolled away and stared at the ceiling. You'll bear me sons, he said, strong ones. Not like the weakling my first wife gave me before she died. Callista said nothing. Words felt impossible. Your son Alexios. He'll enter the agoge when he turns 14. 2 years. Nikomachos turned his head to look at her. If you give me 3 sons before then, I'll make sure he's treated well. If not... The threat hung in the air. Do you understand? Yes. Good. He stood pulled on his chiton. You'll learn to love Sparta. They all do eventually. Or they go mad. Either way, you'll still breed. He left. Locked the door again. Callista lay in the darkness, feeling her body betray her with its continued existence. She wanted to scream, to claw at the walls, to do anything except lie there and accept this new reality. But screaming would bring guards. Fighting would get Alexios punished. Resistance had a price she couldn't afford to pay. So she did the only thing she could. She survived. She counted the cracks in the ceiling. 16 visible in the lamplight. She focused on them until her breathing slowed, until the shaking stopped, until she could separate her mind from her body enough to function. And she made a promise to herself: every violation, every indignity, every moment of forced compliance, she'd remember it all. Store it away like weapons in an arsenal. Because someday, somehow, there had to be a reckoning. Even if that reckoning was just refusing to forget. The erasure only works if you let it. Remember that. The moment you stop resisting, even in silence, is the moment you disappear. 6 months passed. Callista learned the routines. Wake before dawn, grind grain, prepare food, serve Nikomachos and whatever warriors he brought home. Never speak unless spoken to, never show emotion, never reference her old life. She saw Alexios twice during that time. Brief supervised visits where he told her about his training, learning Greek history, Spartan version, physical conditioning, weapons basics. He was thinner, harder. His eyes had changed. They say I'll make a good warrior, he told her during the second visit. Do they? I'm faster than the other conquered boys. Stronger too, pride in his voice. Actual pride. The trainer said if I keep improving, I might earn full citizen rights when I'm 20. Callista felt something die inside her. They were working. The systematic erasure was working. Her son was becoming Spartan. "Do you remember Mantinea?" she asked quietly. His face clouded. "Mama, they said we're not supposed to. Do you remember your father?" Silence. Heavy. Terrible. "I remember he fell," Alexios finally said. "But the trainer says he must have been weak. That's why Sparta won. Because we were weak and they were strong. We. He said we about Mantinea. They about Sparta." The pronouns were already changing. "Your father was brave," Callista said fiercely. "He died defending his home. That's not weakness." "Then why did we lose?" The question was so simple, so devastating. Because to a 12-year-old boy surrounded by Spartan propaganda, strength and victory were the same thing. And Mantinea had lost. "Guard," Alexios called out. "I'm ready to go back. Wait." But he was already leaving, eager to return to his training, to the place where everything made sense and strength was measured in brutality. Callista watched him go, watched her son disappear into the Spartan machine. That night she felt movement in her belly, the first flutter of life. She was pregnant, carrying Nicomachos' child, carrying the next generation of Spartans. She thought about the Helot woman, the one who'd brought her food that first day, who'd said remembering only made it hurt more. She understood now, because she could remember Theon, remember her real children, remember Mantinea, but none of it changed this moment. None of it stopped the life growing inside her. She was becoming exactly what they wanted: a vessel for Spartan children, a womb in service of the state. Thyra appeared at her door the next morning. She'd somehow convinced the guards to allow a brief visit. "You're showing," Thyra said quietly. 3 months. "Me too." Thera's hand went to her own belly. "Isn't it perfect? We're making the soldiers who'll conquer our own people." "Don't." "Don't what?" "Tell the truth." Thera's laugh was broken. "My husband brags about it, says our son will be strong because he's got conquered blood to overcome. Like I'm a disease he's breeding out of his children." Callista grabbed her hand. "We survive. We remember. That's all we can do." "For what?" "So our sons can grow up to be Cryptea, so they can hunt and kill people like us." Thyra pulled away. "I heard about a woman last week. 3rd year here. She smothered her newborn. Said she wouldn't let Sparta have another warrior." "What happened to her?" "They made her pregnant again. If she kills this one, they'll keep trying until she breaks or dies." Thera's eyes were hollow. "There's no escape. Not really. We can run, they'll catch us. We can refuse, they'll force us. We can fight, they'll kill us and find new wombs." "Then what do we do?" "I don't know." Thera's voice cracked. "I don't know anymore." She left, and Callista stood alone in that bare room, one hand on her belly, feeling the future kick and turn inside her. The cruelest victories aren't won with swords. They're won when the conquered give birth to their own conquerors. The birth happened on a winter night when even the Spartan guards looked cold. Callista had labored for 14 hours. No midwife, just Gorgo and 2 Helot women who'd done this before. Spartan births were public in a way, witnessed by women who would judge whether the child deserved to live. When the baby finally came, Gorgo held him up to the lamplight, examining, counting fingers and toes, checking for deformities that would mean exposure on the mountain. "Healthy," she declared. "Strong limbs, good lungs." The baby screamed as if protesting his entry into this world. Callista understood the feeling. "What will you name him?" Gorgo asked. Callista wanted to say Theon. Wanted to give her dead husband's name to this child who would never know him. But that would be flagged as resistance, as clinging to the past. "Leonidas," she said, the most Spartan name she could think of. Gorgo smiled. Actually smiled. "Good. You're learning." They placed the baby in Callista's arms. He was warm, alive, perfect. And she hated herself for the surge of love she felt. Because this child, this innocent creature, represented everything she'd been forced to become. The door opened. Nicomachos entered, still wearing his training armor. He looked at the baby with the same expression he'd used to evaluate a new weapon. My son, he said. Not our son, my son. He took the child from Callista's arms, held him up like a trophy. This one will be strong, I can already tell. How can you tell? Callista's voice came out sharper than intended. Because he's mine. Nicomachos looked at her. And because you'll raise him to be Spartan. No Mantinian softness, no weakness. He handed the baby back. Rest. You have 2 years to give me another. He left. The quota system even applied to childbirth. Gorgo lingered at the door. You did well. The next one will be easier. Will it? The birth, yes. The rest. Gorgo's expression was unreadable. No, it never gets easier watching your children become something you don't recognize. She walked out before Callista could ask what she meant. The baby Leonidas nursed hungrily. Callista looked down at his face and saw nothing of herself, nothing of Theon, just a blank slate that Sparta would write on until he became another warrior in their endless machine. She thought of Lyra, of Nikos. Were they even alive? Did they remember her? You're crying? One of the Helot women said quietly. Don't. They'll think you're weak. I am weak. No, you're human. That's different. The woman, her name was Cora, sat beside the bed. I had 3 children before Sparta took Messenia. All gone now. 2 died in the Helot revolts. 1 became Cryptea. Her voice was flat. He doesn't recognize me anymore. How do you survive that? You don't. You just keep breathing and call it survival. Cora stood. That baby, love him, hate him, feel nothing. Doesn't matter. Sparta will take him at 7 and you'll never really get him back. 7. 5 years from now, they'd take Leonidas to the Agoge. 5 years to know her son before he became theirs. The tragedy wasn't the separation. It was knowing it was coming and being unable to stop it. When the thing you love most is also the weapon they'll use against you, can love itself become a form of betrayal? 3 months after Leonidas's birth, Alexios came home, not to visit, to live. His pre-Agoge training was complete, and he had 2 years before full immersion began. Nicomachos had requested his presence, wanting to evaluate the boy's progress, see if conquered blood could produce Spartan loyalty. Callista barely recognized him. He was taller, broader. His hair was cut Spartan short. He moved with military precision, and when he looked at her, there was something cold in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Alexios, mother. The word was formal, distant. He glanced at baby Leonidas in her arms. My brother. Yes. He's small. He's 3 months old. I was larger at 3 months. It wasn't a boast, just a statement of fact, as if he'd been taught to measure everything by Spartan standards. Will he be strong? I don't know. He needs to be. Weak children don't survive the Agoge. Alexios turned to Nicomachos. Sir, where should I put my equipment? Sir, he called his mother's rapist, sir. Nicomachos clapped him on the shoulder. Good discipline. You've learned well. Your quarters are in the back. You'll share with the household guards. Training continues at dawn. Yes, sir. Alexios walked past Callista without another word, as if she were furniture, as if the woman who'd carried him, birthed him, protected him through the siege no longer existed as anything meaningful. Gorgo appeared at her elbow. Don't look so shocked. This is what you wanted, isn't it, for him to survive? Not like this. Then you wanted the impossible. Gorgo watched Alexios disappear into the house. Sparta doesn't do halfway. You're either one of us or you're nothing. Your son chose wisely. He's 14. Old enough to understand power. Gorgo's voice softened slightly. My own sons barely speak to me. They love Sparta more than they'll ever love me. That's how it works here. We raise them, then we lose them. The state always wins. She left Callista standing there holding an infant who would suffer the same fate in 7 years. That night, Callista tried to connect with Alexios. Found him in the courtyard practicing spear work in the moonlight. Can we talk? He didn't stop moving, thrust parry spin. About what? About us. About... There is no us. There's you and there's me, and we happen to share blood. He finally stopped, turned to face her. The trainers explained it. You're Mantenian. I'm becoming Spartan. Those are incompatible identities. I'm your mother. You're the woman who gave birth to me. That's not the same thing. His voice was flat, rehearsed. Spartan men don't let sentiment weaken them. Family is the state. Loyalty is to Sparta. They taught you to say that. They taught me the truth. He resumed his practice. You should go inside. It's not proper for women to be out after dark. Callista stood frozen. This stranger wearing her son's face, speaking in platitudes he'd been programmed to repeat. The boy who'd held her hand through the march, who'd whispered, "We have to be strong," was gone, replaced by this hollow thing shaped like a Spartan. Do you remember your father? She asked quietly. The spear stopped mid-thrust. For just a moment, something flickered in Alexios's face. Pain, confusion. Then it was gone, replaced by the mask. I remember he lost. That's all that matters. He walked away, left her standing in the courtyard, mourning a son who was still alive. The cruelest death isn't physical. It's watching someone you love choose to become someone you can't recognize. 2 years crawled by. Callista gave birth again, another boy named Aristodemus. Nicomachos was pleased. His quota was being met, his bloodline secured through the body of a conquered woman. Leonidas grew strong. Too strong. By age 2, he was already showing signs of aggression, mimicking the warriors he saw training. He'd hit the Helot children, then laugh when they cried. Good, Nicomachos said. He'll make an excellent fighter. Callista tried to teach him gentleness, would tell him stories of Mantinea, of kindness, of her father, who'd been a builder, not a warrior, but Leonidas would get bored and run off to watch the soldiers instead. He was already choosing Sparta over her. At 2 years old, Alexios turned 16 and entered the agoge officially. The ceremony was public young men swearing oaths to Sparta, their families watching with pride. Callista stood in the crowd holding Leonidas pregnant again with her third. She watched Alexios kneel before the ephors, watched him swear to die for Sparta, if necessary. Watched him receive his first real weapon. He looked happy, genuinely happy. Thyra stood beside her, also pregnant, also dying inside. They've won, she whispered. Look at them, our sons. They're actually proud to be here. Maybe they have to be. Maybe pride is easier than grief. Or maybe we've created monsters and we're too weak to admit it. The ceremony ended. The new warriors dispersed to their barracks. Alexios walked past Callista without acknowledgement. She'd become invisible to him. But then he stopped, turned back. For just a second, their eyes met. She saw it, brief, fleeting, a flash of the boy he'd been. Scared. Lost. Still her son somewhere underneath the Spartan shell. Then it was gone. He straightened his shoulders and walked away. That night, Callista made a decision. A terrible, necessary decision. She found Cora in the slave quarters. I need your help. With what? I need to see my other children, Lyra and Nikos. I need to know if they're alive. Cora's expression darkened. That's forbidden. Once children are separated, they stay separated. It's the rule. I don't care about the rules. You should. Breaking them means punishment. For you and your living children. I'm already being punished. Every day I wake up in this house is punishment. Callista grabbed Cora's arm. Please, I just need to know. Are they alive? Are they... Her voice cracked. Are they suffering? Cora was silent for a long moment. Then she sighed. The Helot villages are 3 miles south. If your children were assigned to field work, that's where they'd be. I can't help you get there, but I won't stop you either. Thank you. Don't thank me. If you're caught, I never spoke to you. Cora walked away, leaving Callista alone with her impossible plan. She waited until the house was asleep, until Nicomachos was snoring, until the guards were at their laziest point in rotation. Then she slipped out through the servants' entrance, carrying nothing but a dark cloak and desperate hope. The 3 miles felt like 30. Every sound made her freeze. Every shadow could be Cryptia. The secret police who killed for practice, who hunted helots and runaway wives for sport. She reached the Helot village just before dawn. It was worse than she'd imagined. Hovels, not houses. People sleeping in dirt. Children with distended bellies from malnutrition. She moved through the shadows looking at faces. Most were too old or too young. Some were clearly from other cities. Argos, Messenia, Athens. All conquered. All enslaved. Then she saw her, Lyra. 9 years old now, no 11. 2 years had passed. She'd grown taller, thinner. Her hair was matted, her face dirty. She was carrying water, struggling with a jar too heavy for her frame. Callista stepped forward. Lyra. The girl turned, looked at her with empty eyes. Lyra, it's me. It's Mama. Nothing. No recognition. No emotion. Lyra, please. I don't know you. The girl's voice was flat. Leave me alone or I'll call the guards. No, wait, you're my daughter. From Mantinea. Remember, we had a house near the market. Your father made you that wooden doll. I don't remember any of that. I'm Helot. I've always been Helot. Lyra backed away. You're confused. Or you're testing me. Either way, I have work to do. She walked away, didn't look back. Callista stood frozen. Her daughter, her own daughter, didn't remember her. Hadn't been playing dumb to protect herself. Had genuinely forgotten. Sparta hadn't just taken her children. They'd erased the parts that remembered being hers. A hand grabbed her shoulder. She spun Cora. You need to leave. Now. The patrols change in 10 minutes. She didn't remember me. Of course not. They train them young. Teach them the past doesn't exist, only Sparta. Cora pulled her toward the tree line. Your other child, the boy. Nikos. He's in the quarries. I heard he tried to escape last year. They caught him. He's in chains now. Chains. Her baby. Her 4-year-old who used to cry when she left the room. I want to see him. You can't. Quarries are guarded. You'd be killed before you got close. Cora's grip tightened. You've seen enough. You know they're alive, that's all you're getting. Now move before we both die. They ran back through the darkness. Callista's mind was screaming, but her body moved on autopilot. By the time they reached the house, the sun was rising. Nikomachos was awake, standing in the courtyard, waiting. Where were you? Callista's blood turned to ice. I couldn't sleep. I went for a walk. In the dark, alone. He moved closer. Don't lie to me. I'm not... He hit her. Not hard enough to break anything, but hard enough to make his point. She fell, tasted blood. A guard saw you heading south, toward the Helot villages. He crouched beside her. Were you visiting your old children, the ones you're supposed to forget? Silence. Because any answer was damning. I'll give you one chance to explain yourself. Callista looked up at him. At this man who'd killed her husband, raped her, forced her to bear his children, systematically destroyed everything she'd been. And something inside her snapped. I wanted to see if they were alive, if Sparta had killed them yet, if they remembered me. Her voice was raw. That's what you wanted to hear, isn't it? That I'm not fully broken, that I still remember being human. Nikomachos stood. Guard, bring the boy. Which boy? Leonidas, the 2-year-old. No. They brought her son out. Sleepy, confused. When he saw his mother bleeding, he started to cry. Nikomachos picked him up, held him gently. You see this child, he's mine. My blood, my future. He looked at Callista. You want to cling to your past, fine, but understand the cost. He handed Leonidas to the guard. Take him to my sister. He'll live with her now. His mother has proven unfit. No! Callista lunged forward. 2 guards grabbed her. Mama! Leonidas screamed, reaching for her. Mama! Please! Callista was sobbing now. Please, not him. Take me instead. Send me to the quarries. Kill me. Just don't. This is mercy. Nicomachos' voice was cold. I could have him exposed, left on the mountain for wolves, but I'm allowing him to live and be raised properly, by a Spartan woman who won't poison him with sentiment. They carried Leonidas away. His screams echoed through the courtyard until they faded into nothing. Callista collapsed. The guards released her and she crumpled to the stones, making sounds that weren't quite screams, weren't quite words. Nicomachos crouched beside her again. You have one son left in this house, the infant, and you're carrying another. If you ever try to contact your old children again, I'll take those too. Do you understand? She understood. She understood perfectly. Sparta didn't need whips or chains. They just took everything you loved and made you watch it disappear. The woman who loses everything has nothing left to lose except the memory of having something to lose. 3 months later, Callista gave birth to her 4th child, a girl. The midwife, a different one this time Gorgo had refused to come, held up the baby and frowned. It's female. Nicomachos looked disappointed. I needed another son. What do we do with her? He shrugged. Raise her. She'll make someone a wife eventually. More conquered blood to absorb into Sparta. They named her Lampito, a Spartan name for a girl who would be raised as Spartan property, another link in the chain of systematic erasure. Callista held her daughter and felt nothing. No joy, no love, no connection. She'd been hollowed out, scraped clean of emotion by 2 years of systematic trauma. The baby cried. Callista mechanically began to nurse. This was her function now. Womb vessel incubator. Nothing more. Thyra visited a week later. She looked worse, bruised, thin, haunted. I heard what happened with Leonidas. They took him. I know. Thyra sat beside the bed. My husband did the same last month. Took my daughter. Said I was too soft, too Argive. She lives with his mother now. Her laugh was broken. We birth them, nurse them, and they steal them anyway. How much more can they take? Everything. And then they'll find more. Thyra's eyes were dead. I've been thinking about the woman who smothered her baby. The one I told you about. I understand now. She wasn't weak. She was smart. She was ending the cycle. Don't talk like that. Why not? It's the truth. Thyra stood. We're not mothers anymore, Callista. We're just breeding stock. And breeding stock doesn't need to feel anything. She walked away. And Callista wondered if Thyra was right. If maybe the only way to survive was to stop feeling entirely. To become as hollow as Sparta wanted them to be. But then baby Lampito made a small sound, not quite a cry, more like a question. And despite everything, despite the numbness, Callista felt something stir. Not love exactly, but perhaps the memory of what love used to feel like. And she realized they could take her children. They could take her body, her freedom, her identity. But if she let them take her ability to feel even pain, even grief, then they'd won completely. So she held her daughter and let herself feel everything. The loss, the rage, the helpless despair of loving in a place that treated love as weakness. It hurt. God, it hurt. But it was hers. And that made it worth keeping. Because the moment you stop feeling the weight of what's been taken is the moment you forget it was ever yours to lose. Lampito turned 7 on a cold morning in early spring. Callista woke, knowing what day it was, what it meant. In Sparta, 7 was the age of separation. The age when children stopped belonging to their mothers and became property of the state. She'd dressed her daughter carefully, braided her hair the way Spartan girls wore it. Lampito had asked why she was being so quiet. It's an important day. Why? You'll see. But Callista couldn't bring herself to explain, couldn't say the words, today I lose you too. Nicomachos appeared at breakfast. He looked at Lampito with the same assessing gaze he used on all his children. She's small. She's 7. Spartan girls are larger, he frowned. But she'll do. Gorgo will take her this afternoon. She'll live in the women's quarters, train with the other girls. For how long? Until she's married off. 15, maybe 16. He said it casually, as if discussing livestock rotation. If she's strong enough, she might bear good sons. If not, he shrugged. Lampeto looked between them, not understanding. Mama, where am I going? Callista's throat closed. She couldn't answer. Nicomachos stood. You're going to become a proper Spartan woman. Not soft like your mother. Strong. Useful. He left. Lampeto started to cry. I don't want to go. I want to stay with you. Callista pulled her close, breathing in her daughter's scent, milk and honey and childhood. I know, baby. I know. Then don't let them take me. I can't stop them. Why not? You're my mother. Because mothers have no power here. Because being a mother in Sparta means watching all your children disappear and calling it tradition. You have to be brave, Callista whispered. Braver than you've ever been. I don't want to be brave. I want to be with you. They sat like that until Gorgo arrived. She didn't knock, just entered and stood in the doorway with her arms crossed. Ready? No. Callista's voice was sharp. Give us a few more minutes. The schedule doesn't allow for sentimentality. Gorgo moved forward. Come, girl. Time to start your real education. Lampeto clung to Callista. Mama, please. Let her go, Gorgo said. You're only making this harder. It's already hard. A few more minutes won't. Gorgo grabbed Lampeto's arm and pulled. The girl screamed, her fingers clawing at her mother's dress, ripping the fabric exactly like Lyra had done years ago in Mantinea. History repeating itself. Different child, same violence. Mama. Then she was gone. The door closed. The house fell silent. Callista sat on the floor, holding torn fabric, listening to her daughter's screams fade into distance. 4 children she'd birthed in Sparta, all of them taken, all of them absorbed into the machine. She thought about the infant Aristodemus, barely 2 years old, still nursing. He was all she had left. But in 5 years they'd take him too. 5 years. And then she'd have nothing except the memory of having been a mother. A sound came from her throat, not quite a laugh, not quite a sob. Because she finally understood the full scope of Sparta's genius. They didn't just conquer territory. They conquered generations. They took your children and turned them into weapons against everything you'd ever been. They made you participate in your own erasure and called it mercy. When they take your children but leave you alive to remember them, is that cruelty or kindness? Or is it both designed to break you in ways death never could? 2 weeks later, Thyra hanged herself. They found her in the storage room, a rope around her neck, her body still warm. She'd left no note. Didn't need to. Everyone understood. The funeral was brief. Spartan efficiency even in death. They burned her body, collected the ashes, barely spoke her name. Callista stood at the edge of the pyre, watching smoke rise. Beside her, other captured wives whispered, How many is that now? 4 this year. 5. There was the Messenian woman last month. They never talk about it. Just burn them and move on like they never existed. Milena, the woman from Argos who'd been here 6 years, appeared at Callista's elbow. You knew her. She was my friend, the closest thing I had to one. Had she seemed broken? Yes, we all are. Callista watched the flames consume what remained of Thyra's body. She just stopped pretending she wasn't. Her husband will remarry within the month, probably another captured woman. The cycle continues. Callista turned to look at her. How are you still alive? After 6 years. Milena's smile was terrible. I'm not. I died years ago. This is just my body going through motions. She gestured at the pyre. Your friend was smarter. She ended it before becoming what I am. What are you? Empty. I feel nothing. My sons are strangers who call me mother out of obligation. My husband uses me and I barely notice. I wake up, perform my functions, and go to sleep. That's not life. It's just existing. Milena's eyes were hollow. Some of us survive by feeling everything. Others survive by feeling nothing. Neither way is really surviving. She walked away, leaving Callista alone with the burning. That night, Callista found a piece of parchment Thyra had hidden in the slave quarters. Cora brought it to her wrapped in cloth. She wrote this the day before she died. Made me promise to give it to you. Callista unfolded it. Thyra's handwriting was shaky but legible. Callista, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Don't mourn me. I'm finally free. They took everything, my city, my husband, my children, my body. But they couldn't take my choice to leave. That was mine. Remember that. Remember that somewhere, somehow, we still have choices. Even if the only choice left is when to stop. I'm sorry I couldn't be stronger. I'm sorry I couldn't keep fighting. But I'm not sorry for leaving. This place kills you slowly or you leave quickly. I chose quickly. Remember me as I was in Argos, not what they made me here. Your friend Thyra. Callista read it 3 times, then burned it. Couldn't risk Nicomachos finding it, but the words stayed. Particularly, one line, remember me as I was. How many women had Sparta erased so completely that no one remembered who they'd been before? How many Callistas and Thyras and Elenas had existed through the centuries, all of them systematically destroyed and forgotten? She thought about her own children. Alexios didn't remember being Mantinean. Leonidas had never known anything but Sparta. Lyra had forgotten her completely. In 2 generations, there would be no trace that Mantinea had ever existed in their bloodline. They'd be fully Spartan, their conquered ancestry just a footnote in someone's wax tablet. That was the real conquest, not the battle, the erasure. 3 months after Thyra's death, Alexios came home. He was 18 now, a full Spartan warrior. He'd completed the Agoge, survived the brutal training, even participated in his first Krypteia hunt. He wore his crimson cloak with pride, carried his spear like an extension of his body. When he walked, other young warriors made space for him. He'd become everything Sparta wanted, and nothing Callista recognized. Mother. He nodded formally. I'm stationed here for the month. I'll be using the guest quarters. You can't stay in your old room. That was a child's room. I'm a warrior now. He paused. Also, I'm engaged. The words hit like a physical blow. What? To Gorgo's daughter, Cleomene. The marriage is arranged for next spring, he said it matter-of-factly. You'll meet her at the ceremony. Alexios, you're 18. Old enough to serve Sparta. Old enough to produce the next generation. He finally looked at her directly. Isn't that what you did, bear children for the state? The bitterness in his voice caught her off guard. What? You think I don't know? You think I don't remember? He stepped closer. I remember Mantinea. I remember father. I remember Lyra and Nikos. I remember everything you think I forgot. Callista's heart stopped. Then why? Because remembering doesn't change anything. His voice was hard. Father's dead. Mantinea's gone. Lyra's Helot Nikos is in chains, and I'm here wearing this cloak because that's the only option that keeps me alive. You could resist and die. And for what? For a city that doesn't exist anymore? For a father who lost? He turned away. You want to know the truth. Sometimes I hate him for losing, for not being strong enough to save us, for leaving us to this. Don't say that. Why not? Because it hurts. Everything hurts, Mother. Living hurts. Remembering hurts. But at least if I'm Spartan, I'm on the winning side. At least my children won't be conquered. They'll be conquerors instead. Is that better? Yes. He said it without hesitation. Because being conquered is what happened to us. And I'll die before I let it happen again. He walked away. Left Callista standing there, understanding finally what Sparta had done. They hadn't erased her son's memory. They'd weaponized it, turned his trauma into loyalty, his pain into patriotism. He remembered being conquered and hated it so much he'd become the conqueror. That's how they did it. That's how they turned enemies into soldiers. They didn't make you forget. They made you ashamed of who you'd been so grateful to be Spartan that you'd do anything to prove you belonged. The deepest loyalty doesn't come from forgetting where you came from. It comes from hating it so much you destroy it yourself to prove you've changed. That spring, Callista attended Alexios's wedding. It was a public affair. Hundreds of Spartans gathered to watch the son of a conquered woman marry into a prominent Spartan family. Proof that the integration system worked, that enemies could become citizens in just one generation. The bride Cleomene was 17. Strong, athletic, with the cold eyes Callista had learned to associate with native Spartan women. She looked at Alexios with approval as if he were a well-trained horse she was pleased to own. During the ceremony, Alexios recited his vows. I swear to serve Sparta above all, to raise sons who will defend her, to die for her glory if needed. No mention of love, no mention of partnership, just duty and death. Cleomene's vows were identical. When they kissed, it was mechanical, performative, a public display of Spartan values rather than any actual affection. The crowd applauded. Nicomachos stood beside Callista beaming. Your son has done well, conquered blood but pure Spartan loyalty. That's what our system creates. He's not my son anymore. No, he's Sparta's son, as it should be. He gestured at the happy couple. In a few years, they'll have children, your grandchildren, full citizens. No one will remember they have Mantinean blood. That's true conquest, erasing the past so completely it might as well never existed. Callista watched Alexios smile for the crowd, watched him play the perfect Spartan warrior, and she wondered if he was happy or if he was just so committed to the performance that he'd forgotten the difference. After the ceremony, there was a feast. Callista sat at the women's table surrounded by Spartan wives who barely acknowledged her presence. She was still marked as others, still tainted by her origins. Gorgo sat across from her. Your son did well today. Thank you. My daughter will make him strong sons, good warriors. Gorgo paused. You should be proud. Despite your weakness, you produced a valuable male. The casual cruelty was almost funny. Almost. I am proud, Callista said quietly, but not for the reasons you think. Oh, enlighten me. I'm proud he survived. That's all. Survival is its own form of victory. Gorgo laughed. Survival. That's all you aspire to. How typically Mantinean. She leaned forward. Let me tell you something about survival. It's not a virtue. It's just what's left when you've given up everything else. And what have you given up? The question seemed to catch Gorgo off guard. For just a moment, something flickered in her face. Then it was gone. Nothing. Because I was born knowing what matters. Sparta. Only Sparta. She stood. You'll never understand that. You'll always be other. Always conquered. Even if you live here 50 years. She walked away. And Callista realized she was right. No matter how long she lived in Sparta, no matter how many children she bore, no matter how well she performed obedience, she'd always be marked as conquered. Always other. That was part of the system too. They integrated you just enough to be useful, but kept you separate enough to maintain hierarchy. You could bear citizens, but never be one. You could raise Spartans, but never become Spartan. You were permanently suspended between two worlds, no longer Mantinean, never fully Spartan, existing in a liminal space of perpetual otherness. Later that night, Callista found Alexios alone in the courtyard. He was drunk rare for a Spartan, but allowed on wedding nights. Mother? He swayed slightly. Come to congratulate me again. I came to ask if you're happy. Happy. He laughed bitterly. What's happiness? I don't even know anymore. I know duty. I know survival. I know how to kill efficiently and follow orders perfectly. But happy. He looked at her with eyes that were suddenly very young. Do you think Father was happy before? Yes, I think he was. Then maybe happiness is for people who don't live in Sparta. He took another drink. Or maybe it's for people who don't remember there used to be alternatives. You could leave, run away, start over somewhere, and become what a traitor, an exile, a man without city or identity. He shook his head. This is my life now. This is what I am. Hating it doesn't change it. Remembering something different doesn't change it. I'm Spartan now. That's all I can afford to be. Even if it costs you your soul. Souls are luxuries, Mother. Survival is necessity. You taught me that. When you chose to live instead of die on that first march. When you bore children for the man who killed father. When you kept breathing day after day in this place. His voice cracked. You survived, so I'm surviving. That's what you taught me. He walked away, leaving Callista alone with the weight of his words. Because he was right. She had chosen survival, had made compromise after compromise, had borne children for her rapist, had performed obedience for years. All in the name of staying alive. But what had survival cost her children? Her identity, her humanity. Was being alive really worth it if you had to destroy yourself to do it? A month later, news came from the Helot villages. There'd been an uprising. Small, quickly crushed, but violent. Several Spartans had been killed. The reprisal was brutal. They executed every 10th Helot. Public crucifixions lining the road. Men, women, even children, left hanging for days as warnings. Cora brought Callista the news she'd been dreading. Your son, Nikos, he was involved in the uprising. Callista's world tilted. Is he? They caught him. He's in the public square. They're making an example. She ran. Didn't think, just ran through the streets toward the center of Sparta. Guards tried to stop her, but she pushed past, desperate, terrified. When she reached the square, she saw him. Nikos. 12 years old now. Thin as a skeleton, covered in scars, chained to a wooden post. Around him, Spartan soldiers stood with whips. An officer was addressing the crowd. This Helot attempted to murder his master. The penalty is death. But first 50 lashes. Let all Helots witness what happens to rebels. No! Callista pushed through the crowd. Stop, he's just a child. The officer looked at her with cold eyes. He's Helot property. You have no claim. I'm his mother. You were his mother when he was Mantinean. Now he's Spartan property, and property that rebels must be punished. The first lash fell. Nikos screamed. Callista tried to run forward. Guards grabbed her, held her back. She fought, clawing, screaming his name. Nikos, baby. Look at me. He turned his head. Their eyes met across the square, and she saw recognition. He remembered her. After 8 years, after being enslaved and broken and beaten, he still remembered his mother. Mama. His voice was so small, so broken. Then the second lash fell, and the third, and the fourth. Callista screamed until her voice gave out. Watched her son's back split open under the whip. Watched blood run down the post. Watched him stop screaming around lash 30 because he didn't have the strength left. At 50 they stopped. Cut him down. His body crumpled to the stones. 3 days until execution, the officer announced. Let him suffer as example. They left him there, bleeding, barely conscious. Callista finally broke free of the guards, ran to him, fell to her knees in his blood. Nikos, baby, I'm here. I'm here. His eyes fluttered open. Mama, I tried to find you. I tried. I know. Shh. Save your strength. Lyra. She doesn't remember. But I did. I always remembered. He coughed blood. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough. No. No, you were so strong. You survived. You remembered. That's everything. Mama. It hurts. I know, baby. I know. Guards pulled her away. No contact with prisoners. He's dying. Let me stay with him. 3 days, then execution. Those are the rules. They dragged her away. She watched her son lying in the square bleeding alone, and she understood this was Sparta's final cruelty. Not just killing your children, but making you watch them die slowly. Making sure you understood that love was weakness, and weakness was punished. That night, Callista made a decision. She found Cora in the slave quarters. I need poison. Something fast. For who? For me. To give to my son, so he doesn't have to suffer 3 more days. Cora's eyes widened. If you're caught, I don't care. He's my child. I won't let him die in agony for Spartan entertainment. Callista grabbed her shoulders. Please, you're a mother. You understand. Cora was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded. Hemlock, I can get it, but you'll only have 1 chance. Guards rotate every 4 hours. The gap is smallest at midnight. I'll take it. That night, Callista waited until the house was asleep. Then she slipped out carrying a small vial Cora had given her. The square was dark quiet. Nikos lay where they'd left him, curled on his side, breathing shallowly. She knelt beside him. Nikos, baby, can you hear me? His eyes opened. Just barely. Mama, I brought you something. To stop the pain. Do you understand? He nodded, weakly. I'm scared. I know, but it'll be quick. You'll fall asleep, and when you wake up, you'll be with your father. In Messenia, before the siege, before any of this. Will you be there? Someday, not yet, but someday. She uncorked the vial. But you need to go first. You need to rest now. I don't want to leave you alone. I'm not alone. I have your brother, your sister Lampedo. I'll be okay. She was lying, but he needed to hear it. Are you ready? He nodded, opened his mouth. She poured the hemlock, watched him swallow, held him as the poison worked. It took minutes. He shook, then went still. His breathing slowed, stopped. Callista held her son's body and felt something inside her finally break completely. They'd taken everything. Her city, her husband, her children, her body, her identity. And now this, the last child who'd remembered being hers. She sat in the square holding him until the guards found her at dawn. Sometimes the greatest act of love is granting mercy when the world offers only cruelty. And sometimes the cost of that mercy is surviving what comes after. They dragged Callista to the ephors at dawn. 5 old men sat in judgment, their faces carved from stone and tradition. They'd heard about the poisoning within an hour. In Sparta, nothing stayed hidden long. The lead ephor spoke without preamble. You killed state property. I ended my son's suffering. Helots are not your sons. They are Sparta's resources. You destroyed what you had no right to touch. He looked at a wax tablet. This is your second violation. First, you attempted contact with separated children. Now, murder of state property. He was 12 years old and dying anyway. The manner of death matters. Public execution serves a purpose, teaches lessons. You stole that from us. The ephor's voice was flat. The penalty is death. Callista felt nothing. No fear, no surprise, just a hollow acknowledgement that this had always been inevitable. When at 3 days, public crucifixion, same post your son died on, he paused. Your remaining children will be redistributed. The infant will go to another household. Your daughter is already state property. They'll be told you died of illness. Cleaner that way. Can I see them before? No, you've lost that privilege. He gestured to the guards. Take her to the cells. They threw her in a stone room beneath the ephorate. No window, no light except what leaked under the door. She sat in darkness and finally let herself feel everything she'd been holding back for 8 years. Theon was dead. Messenia was ashes. Lyra didn't remember her. Nikos was gone, buried by now, probably without ceremony. Leonidas had been taken. Lampito was being raised to hate everything Callista had been. Alexios had become the enemy. And Aristodemus, barely 2 years old, would grow up never knowing his mother had existed. Complete erasure. Exactly what Sparta had promised that first day. She laughed. Actually, laughed. Because after 8 years of surviving, of compromising, of doing everything they demanded, she'd ended up here anyway. Maybe Thyra had been right. Maybe leaving quickly was smarter than this slow destruction. Footsteps outside. The door opened. Gorgo entered carrying a lamp. She looked at Callista without expression. Come to gloat? No. Gorgo set down the lamp. I came to tell you something. About your son. The one you gave hemlock to. What about him? He died quickly. Peacefully. The guards said he looked almost content. Gorgo's voice was strange. Soft. You gave him mercy. That took courage. Callista stared at her. You're complimenting me while I'm waiting to be executed. I'm stating fact. Gorgo sat on the stone floor across from her. You know what they would have done to him at the execution, made it last hours, used techniques designed for maximum pain. He would have begged for death long before it came. Why are you telling me this? Because... Gorgo's mask cracked slightly. Because I had a son once. Before you came, he was born weak, clubfoot. The ephors said he had to be exposed on the mountain, left for wolves. She looked at her hands. I brought him there myself. That's the law. Spartan mothers expose their own defective children. God. I left him on the rocks and walked away. Heard him crying for hours as I walked back. He was 3 days old. Gorgo's voice was hollow. I told myself I was being strong, serving Sparta, following tradition. But 20 years later, I still hear him crying. Why are you telling me this? Because you did what I couldn't. You chose your child over the state. You chose mercy over obedience. Gorgo looked up and her eyes were wet. Actually wet. You're being executed for loving your son too much to let him suffer. I'm considered a model Spartan for leaving mine to die alone. Which of us is the monster? She stood abruptly. I can't help you. The sentence is final. But I wanted you to know. What you did. It wasn't weakness. It was the most human thing I've seen in this place. She left. The door closed. And Callista sat in darkness, understanding finally that Sparta's cruelty wasn't just external. It forced everyone, conquerors and conquered alike, to destroy the people they loved in the name of strength. The system didn't just break its victims, it broke everyone. Turned mothers into killers, love into liability, humanity itself into something shameful. On the second day, Milena visited. The guards let her in briefly, supervised. She brought bread and water. You don't have to do this, Callista said. Yes, I do. Someone needs to witness. Milena sat. I heard what you did for your son. The other captured wives are talking about it, quietly, carefully, but talking. About what? About resistance. About how you chose love over survival. How you broke the rules knowing it would kill you. Milena's voice dropped to a whisper. Some of them are saying you're brave. Others are saying you're foolish. But all of them are thinking about their own children and wondering if they'd have the courage to do the same. It wasn't courage, it was just the only thing left I could do for him. Maybe that's what courage is. Doing the only thing you can when all choices are terrible. Milena squeezed her hand. My sons are 9 and 7 now. They're becoming what this place makes them. But because of you, I'll remember they were mine first, before they were Sparta's. That won't change anything. It will for me. And maybe that's enough. Maybe remembering is its own form of resistance. She stood. The other women asked me to tell you something. They're going to remember your name. Callista of Mantinea. Mother who chose mercy. They'll whisper it to their daughters, their captured sisters. Your name won't die with you. She left before Callista could respond. And Callista realized this was how you fought back when you had no weapons. You remembered. You passed down names. You refused to let the erasure be complete. It wasn't much, but it was something. On the third morning they came for her. The march to the execution post was public. Citizens lined the streets watching in silence. Some looked curious. Some looked approving. A few mostly other captured women looked away. Alexios was there, standing in formation with other young warriors. When Callista passed him, their eyes met. For a moment, she saw her son. The real one. The boy who'd held her hand through the first march. Who'd whispered, "We have to be strong." Then his face hardened. He looked away, choosing Sparta over her even now. But his jaw was clenched. His hands were fists. And she knew he was fighting himself, fighting the part that still loved her against the part that had been trained to see love as weakness. She wanted to tell him it was okay, that she understood, that surviving meant making impossible choices. But the guards pushed her forward. They reached the post still stained with Nikos's blood. They chained her arms above her head, positioning her exactly where her son had died. The lead ephor read the charges. Callista of Messenia, convicted of destroying state property. The sentence is death by crucifixion, to be carried out until life expires. Let this serve as warning to all who place personal sentiment above Sparta's law. He nodded to the executioner. The first nail went through her wrist. The pain was white-hot, absolute. She screamed. The second nail. More screaming. They hoisted her up. The weight of her body pulling on the nails sent fresh waves of agony through her arms. She hung there bleeding, struggling to breathe. Around her the crowd watched with blank faces. This was entertainment, instruction, public reinforcement of Sparta's values. She looked down and saw Nikomachos. He watched without emotion. This woman who'd borne him 3 children, who'd served his household for 8 years, meant nothing to him now. She was just a disobedient asset being disposed of. Beside him stood Leonidas, now 5 years old, being raised by Gorgo. The boy looked up at her with no recognition, just mild curiosity at the spectacle. And behind them, Cleomene held a baby. Alexios' son, Callista's grandchild, a child who would grow up never knowing his grandmother had existed. 3 generations, conquered, converted, erased. This was Sparta's final victory. Not her death, but her irrelevance. She would die, and within a generation it would be as if she'd never lived. But then she saw them, in the back of the crowd, a cluster of women, captured wives, standing together. And as she watched one of them, Milena raised her hand to her heart, an old Argive gesture of remembrance. Then another woman did it, and another. A silent acknowledgement. We see you. We remember. You're not erasing completely. It wasn't much. But it was something. Callista closed her eyes and let herself remember. Not Sparta, not the nightmare, but before. Theon laughing in their courtyard, Lyra asking endless questions, Nikos falling asleep in her arms, Alexios learning to write, Messenia in spring when the flowers bloomed, the life she'd had before conquest, the person she'd been before systematic destruction. They could kill her body. They could erase her from records. They could take her children and make them forget. But in this moment, suspended between earth and sky, she chose to remember, and in remembering, refused to let them take everything. The hours passed. The sun climbed. Breathing became harder. She drifted in and out of consciousness. At some point, she heard voices. Mother. Alexios, standing below her. Alone now. The crowd had dispersed. I'm sorry. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry. For what? For letting this happen, for being too weak to... You survived. That's what I wanted. Each word was agony. Don't apologize for surviving. But you became what you had to become. I don't blame you. She forced her eyes open, looked at him. Promise me something. Anything. Your children. When you have more. Tell them their grandmother was from Messenia. Don't let that part disappear completely. They'll punish me. Just once. Just tell them once. So somewhere someone remembers I existed before Sparta. She coughed blood. Please. I promise. And Alexios, you're not weak. You're strong. You survived what would have broken most people. I'm proud of you. He was crying now, actually crying. The mask finally cracking. I love you, Mother. I never stopped. Even when I pretended. Even when I know, I always knew. She smiled despite the pain. Go now, before someone sees. Live your life. Have children. Be happy if you can. I can't just leave you to. Yes, you can. Because I'm telling you to. Because this is my choice. Because. Her voice failed. The strength was leaving. Alexios looked up at her, his face wet with tears. Then he turned and walked away, following orders one last time. Callista hung alone as the sun set. The pain had become everything. Nothing existed except agony and the gradual failing of her body. She thought about Thyra, about choosing to leave before becoming completely broken. Maybe her friend had been right after all. As darkness fell, she heard one more voice, small, young. Mama, impossible. But she forced her eyes open. Lampedo stood below, 7 years old, wearing a Spartan girl's training uniform. She must have slipped away from the women's quarters. You're not supposed to be here, Callista whispered. I know, but I heard the women talking. They said you were my mother. My real mother. Before. Lampedo's eyes were huge, scared. I wanted to see you. You shouldn't remember me. It'll hurt you later. I don't care. The girl's voice was fierce. They took you away and I never knew why. I never got to say goodbye. I never got to ask why you let them take me. I didn't let them. I couldn't stop them. There's a difference. Then why didn't you fight harder? Tears now. Why didn't you save me? The question children always ask, the one that has no good answer. Because fighting would have gotten you killed. Because I thought maybe if I cooperated, they'd be gentler with you. Because I made the wrong choice. Callista's voice broke. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. I hate it here. The training hurts. The other girls are mean. The teachers say we're not supposed to love anything except Sparta. Lampedo's small fists clenched. I don't want to be like them. I want to be like you. No, don't be like me. Don't let love destroy you. She forced the words out. Be strong. Be smart. Survive. But somewhere inside, remember, you had a mother who loved you. Remember Mantinea. Remember there's more to life than what Sparta teaches. How do I remember when they're trying to make me forget? Every night before you sleep, say it. Just once. My name is Lampedo, daughter of Callista, granddaughter of Mantinea. Keep that peace alive. Can you do that? Yes. Good girl. Now go, before the guards find you. I don't want to leave you. I know, but you have to. You have to survive. For both of us. Callista smiled through tears. I love you. I always loved you. Remember that. Lampedo nodded. Then she ran, disappearing into shadows. And Callista hung in darkness, knowing her daughter would remember. Not everything, not forever, but enough. Just enough to keep a piece of the truth alive. As life left her, she thought about all the women who'd come before. The mothers of Messenia, of Argos, of Athens. All the cities Sparta had conquered, all the families destroyed, all the names erased. She thought about the women who would come after. The endless cycle of conquest and erasure that would continue for generations. And she realized this was Sparta's true weakness. They could build an empire on strength and fear and systematic cruelty. But systems like that carried the seeds of their own destruction. Because eventually the conquered would outnumber the conquerors. The helots would rise. The enslaved would rebel. And the children of violence would turn that violence back on its source. Sparta would fall. Maybe not today. Maybe not in her lifetime. But it would fall. And when it did, maybe someone would remember. Would dig through ashes and find fragments of names. Would piece together stories of women who'd survived the unsurvivable. Would ask the questions that mattered. What happens to a civilization built on cruelty? How long can strength without mercy sustain itself? When you make a machine out of human beings, what happens when those beings remember they're human? Her last thought wasn't of pain. It was of Theon reaching for her across impossible distance, of her children, all of them as they'd been before, of Mantinea when it was whole. She died sometime after midnight. The guards cut her down at dawn, burned her body without ceremony, didn't mark her grave. But in the women's quarters, captured wives whispered her name. And in scattered corners of Sparta, a few voices refused to let silence be complete. 300 years later, when Sparta finally fell, strangled by its own brutality, destroyed by the Helots it had oppressed, abandoned by allies it had betrayed, those whispers would become history. The stones that marked Spartan glory would crumble. But underneath in foundations and forgotten corners, other names would remain. Scratched by enslaved hands, whispered by conquered mothers, preserved by the very people Sparta had tried to erase. Callista of Mantinea, Thyra of Argos, Elena, Melena, Cora, women whose names meant nothing to the men who recorded Sparta's victories. But everything to the daughters who remembered when remembering was resistance. Every empire that builds itself on broken families will eventually be brought down by the ghosts of those families. Every system that treats memory as dangerous proves exactly why memory must be preserved. Every time someone says forget and move on, someone else must say I remember and I refuse. Because in the end, the only way to defeat erasure is to speak the names they wanted silenced. Remember Callista. Remember the women who survived. Remember that strength without humanity isn't strength at all. It's just violence wearing a crown. And remember this, they built Sparta with hatred. But it's remembered with grief for what it did, for what it destroyed, for the women it turned into ghosts. If you believe their names deserve to be spoken, carry this story forward. Write a name in the comments, a woman whose story was erased, whose voice was silenced, whose love was called weakness. Because every time we remember, we resist. Every time we speak their names, they win. The silence after conquest only lasts as long as we let it.